What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Van Chats. I'm sitting here with the legend, one of the GOATs, I think, of cyclocross, especially women's cycling, and that's Ellen Noble. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I made sure to time the question just perfect while you were drinking water. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was my goal for that. So, like I said before, like you're one of those girls that I've like looked up to because of the behind the barriers. I know that's probably something you probably haven't heard about or talked about in a long time, but that's
Yeah.
something that helped me get into the sport. And so, what I kind of want to get to know is how did that even start? Where did that come from? Like, how did you find your fold into cyclocross?
Yeah, so I've raced bikes like my whole life.
Hmm.
And my parents were just like super old school New England mountain bikers. And we just basically rode and trained to be able to race and enjoy racing to its full potential. So we were just, my parents and I were just hooked on racing. That's
Yeah.
all we wanted to do. And so the season, so our mountain bike season was ending earlier and earlier every year. It started ending in like August, and we're like, oh my God, like we don't get to race into the fall. It's like the best time of year in New England. And my parents had like raced maybe one or two cross races in their life, like in the fall. And it was like kind of during this huge boom of cyclocross, like in 2010 to 2012. And yeah, that's when um, we decided to just try a cross race, and I was immediately hooked. Like I loved racing, and so it made me love mountain biking. But mountain biking in New England at the time didn't have any sort of like community aspect or any
Yeah.
social component. So being able to race and also have all of those other elements, like cyclocross, just grabbed me. I was just hooked. So that's kind of how I got into it, and have basically just raced straight out ever since.
Yeah, and so how do you end up meeting? Because it looks like you rode for the Jam Fund,
Mhm.
and that's a cool program. So we're like talking about all these cool junior programs, which I want to dive into a little bit later.
Mhm.
But how do you end up running into Jeremy Powers like at his prime? You know, he's doing his own thing, and he's started this own program. How did you kind of get linked up with him?
Yeah, it's honestly just like such a funny story of really just coincidence.
Yeah.
I did my first cross race at the same time that I was just trying to take racing more seriously in general. And so my dad was asking around at the cross race, like, my daughter needs a coach, who should coach her? And kind of the unanimous decision, the unanimous recommendation from everyone was like, you have to talk to this guy, Al Donahue,
Hmm.
who ended up coaching me for 10 years.
Wow.
He's like one of my best friends. But at the time, I had no idea who he was. I was like, all right, he's just some guy that's going to write me workouts. And Al was coaching Jeremy at the time, and their like, relationship has obviously gone far beyond just like coach and athlete. Like they have a really great friendship.
Hmm.
And so like they were really just connected. And I was going off to college, trying to decide where I was going to be going to school. This is after working with Al for several years, trying to decide where I was going to go to school, do kind of like figure out team stuff and development. And they were like, if you're really serious about going to school in Massachusetts, like we would love to have you join the Jam Fund. We think that we could really like accelerate your learning if you're living by, the team and being able to work with Al and Jeremy like in a mentorship capacity. So that's like really, I mean, I had met Jeremy before, but we became like much closer when my discussion of joining the Jam Fund started. And it was
Hmm.
a pretty easy decision for me to make. It didn't take a whole lot of thought for me to
Yeah.
decide to join the team because it was just such an amazing opportunity.
Well, yeah, like what I liked about like Jeremy's program, at least from the outside looking in, it seemed like not only was he giving you guys and gals help racing wise or just tactics or just like how to travel, whatever, it seemed like he was kind of giving you business side of things too. Cause that kind of folds into you now. Like, look at you now. You're kind of running your own program, Red Bull, Velocio, like that's super cool. So do you kind of feel like that kind of rubbed off on you a little bit in that front?
Yeah, the thing that makes Jam so special is like you're not just learning about bike racing. And I think
Yeah.
that's really the nature of a good development team. Jam is very special in the sense that it appeals to riders that aren't just under 23, whereas like a lot of the other really impactful development teams that I know, start and stop at, you know, 17 to 23, whereas the Jam Fund like had a rider like Stephen Hyde join the team at like 25 or 26, and look at what he's been able to accomplish. And so like with the Jam Fund, obviously we have Coach Al who coaches everyone on the team. And he's teaching us about bike racing, but he's also just teaching us about life.
For
And Al has
sure.
been like one of the most influential people in my life and just kind of shaping who I am. And then, of course, you have Jeremy, who's taught us just so much about running a team. And I had no idea back then what I was learning from Jeremy would be so relevant to my life only a few short years later. So, um, yeah, I mean, the two of them have really, really made a huge impact on a lot of us in different ways, whether it's me running a team or some of my friends from the team that don't even race anymore, but have found success in their respective careers. It's a really cool program.
Yeah, and so and where I got really stoked on you was, I think it's like after the time you separated with Rafa and you were doing the Trek thing, um, you you were probably one of the first females, and I'm not going to say you're the first female to speak out about this, but you were one of the first young females that I pretty much saw put their foot down and take no bullshit, like straight from the gun. You were like, yeah, I'm gonna ride with my jersey unzipped. Yeah, I'm gonna have fun. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
paint my nails, but yeah, I'm still a badass. Like, and so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, because I've had Allison Tetrick on the podcast, who's big
Yeah.
time, into like equality into the sport. What's your kind of thoughts on that now? So like you know what article I'm talking about, and you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago, but what's
Yes.
your kind of thoughts now
Yeah, I mean,
with where we're going?
I still feel the same way, and it's funny because I don't know, sometimes talking about this stuff, I'm like, yeah, past is the past, whatever. But like, apparently these topics are still super relevant. Like, if we're talking about, unzipping a jersey and the double standard around women's bodies and sport and all of that. There's a woman right now who just had an article that I've been seeing going around that I read this morning, and I can't remember her name, but she's Belgian, and she was denied a management opportunity to a cycling team because she had taken like some, I think she had posed for like Sports Illustrated or Belgium or something like that. Like she had done some sort of like modeling, like sexy modeling stuff, and
Oh,
she
just
was
like took a
denied.
picture like in her underwear or something. Like not
Yeah,
even.
she was a professional athlete, professional cyclist in
Okay.
Belgium who also modeled. And she said that she lost her job opportunity with this Belgian cycling team because these photos. And
Jeez.
it's just crazy because I don't know if it was her argument or if it was the journalist's argument, but it was like, riders like Sagan and Cipollini or whoever you want to talk about have all taken exact photos like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen photos, I'm pretty sure, of Sagan completely naked, like just turned, just like you can see his butt. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people, are doing like men and women, but it impacts women differently. And this is like
Yeah.
that same thing. So it's actually still relevant, even though, what you're referencing is from like 2017. We're still having the same conversations, just with different subjects. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I still really firmly believe in, whether or not you agree with someone's decision to unzip their jersey during a race or even pose for, any type of modeling, whether you would do it, we have to respect people's right to choose.
For
And
sure.
that's really firmly where I stand. Like, I just respect people's own right to make their own decision with their body. Like,
For sure. For
that's
sure.
pretty much the long and the short of it for me.
Well, it's nuts to think about that and like think back on that, because I feel like women's bodies were used in sales promotion, and now it's looked down upon if you were the woman in sales promotion, which
Hmm.
is kind of nuts to me and kind of nuts to think about. But I think that folds into your program a bit. Like I want to talk about Ellen now, and I think, yeah, you were the little badass that was putting her foot down, but you're still the badass. But now you're the mature badass that's trying to bring this stuff to light. And so let's talk about your program. Where did that start? Because you were riding with Trek, and now you've started your own thing. And from what I'm reading, it looks like it's not just going to be you. Like your hopes is to grow it. Like at first,
Hmm.
maybe just start it small, but hopes is to grow it. So let's talk about that.
Hmm. Yeah, I began the program last year. I announced it the second week of March 2020, which was,
The
I
best
just
time to
can't
do
believe,
that,
I know,
right?
I just can't believe like no one really cared. It was like, okay, what
Yeah.
else are we worrying? What else are we worrying about, guys?
Yeah.
So pretty much my team, like my team, I call it a team. It's a program. It's just me right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
but it's like, yeah, it's been quite funny because people are like, oh, you're riding in Velocia? Like, are you still in Trek Factory? Like,
Oh
just because
man.
I haven't raced. So like,
Yeah,
there's so little visibility of, you know, what's been going on, and people, like, all jokes aside, people really have just had so much else to worry about that
for sure.
even me, who like it's my job to promote the program, I haven't done my best job just because like there's so much else going on. Like we're like surviving. So
Yeah,
I'm really, really excited. I'm coming up on 1 year of the new program and like on the 1 year sort of mark. So like March 1st, I have some really exciting announcements that I'm not quite at liberty to discuss just yet.
that's cool.
But I'm really, really excited about some of the changes and the direction that the program is going into.
Sweet.
Um, at the moment, it is still just me, but I have every intention of expanding it in some capacity. Um, at the moment, I've just started kind of the like smaller phase of the program, which is like a bit of a mentorship opportunity. Right now, I'm mentoring one rider consistently, but my goal is to expand it to 3 or 4 riders and sort of have them just like under the mentorship umbrella. So they won't be like teammates of mine per se yet, but they definitely will be, will have frequent communication, and then they also have that camaraderie amongst themselves. And I just think like support women at any age supporting other women is so vital. And I
For
feel like
sure.
I've just had so many great mentors myself that being able to kind of keep that development process going is like, the smallest thing that I can do to have an impact. But yeah, it means a lot.
Well, yeah, I bet like Jeremy and Alec are like just literally, yes, we did it, because it's really hard to see teams come and like, you have that one person try to feed all this knowledge and then nothing else can come of it. And then teams
Mm-hmm.
go by the wayside. So it's really cool to see like there's still something from that behind the barriers when it had such a big thing around it. Like there's potential for this program to be that and that bigger, which is super cool. So that being said, like, what's the goals for the program? Like, I know you had mountain bike, and I know you had cyclocross ambitions. You even had a little bit of road ambitions at one point. So
Mm-hmm.
what's kind of the goal for the program? Are you going to go for Kansas or something crazy?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Cancel has been on the table in years past, but just given, at this point, it's been, I had such a condensed race schedule in 2019 and had plans to come back in 2020. So it's been almost 2 full years since I've had a real, like, solid race calendar,
yeah,
like without illness and without a pandemic and blah, blah, blah. So for me, I really have to just focus on the races that matter the most. So unfortunately, it means probably no Kansas, and it might mean that my, couple of road races a year might get axed.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm really focusing on getting back into mountain bike racing. It was like the happiest I've ever been was the season I got to do a full mountain bike season. And
for sure.
I love the sport so much, but obviously I still love cyclocross as well. So it's trying to find that balance and look at the riders that have done it well before me, like Pauline and Yolanda and Evie and those riders that have balanced two disciplines, and then trying to kind of take influence from that.
Yeah, for sure. So what's that been like for you? I mean, because unfortunately, we see tons of articles with the health, the health
Mm-hmm.
issues, and I mean, if anybody's bounced back very well from it, I would say you have. And I mean, you
Thank
know
you.
more than us. I mean, obviously, when you're going through issues like that, like you feel like you're not really bouncing well.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like looking at this, like I'm, track cyclist, tried to go to the Olympics. If I had even half these health issues, a third, like it probably would have stopped my career.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been your motivator? What's been your push to kind of just keep going?
It's funny because like I think about that a lot, and something that I used to preach like really, really heavily was like you have to find your why. Like you
Hmm.
have to know what you're doing this for and why you're doing it. And for a really long time, I felt very connected to that. And I think as things have gotten harder and I've continued to have setbacks and like I feel like I make this progress and it's like one step forward, two steps back, or two steps forward, one step back even. Um, I feel like I've sort of just gotten like worn down, if I'm being totally honest. And I don't want to sound negative, but I have almost lost sight of the why per se at times. But I think that it's just like because I've always done it, I
Yeah,
keep moving forward. If nothing else, it's just like muscle memory of like,
for
well,
sure.
this is what I know. But I mean, honestly, like for a very long time, my major motivator in sport was my dad, who got me into cycling. And then just as I was kind of like getting my footing in racing, he passed away.
Hmm.
And so he was like, I mean, he still is, of course, like a huge motivator for me and like doing it for my dad to like honor his amazing life and how supportive he was to athletes and just people. He was a big why for me. And now I guess there's like this other part of me that has been really fortunate to connect with like the autoimmune community.
Hmm.
And I'll get these emails from people that are like, someone said to me recently, I went from holding my own in my local races to not being able to hold a glass of water. And
Hmm.
reading about your experiences has like really made me feel like more connected with the sport or something like that. And, you know, like sharing my experiences and kind of proving to myself that I can still do it despite like just so many setbacks at this point, I think is a part of it, even though I don't always feel super connected to that. I think when I think about it, I'm like, okay, I'm really doing this to show myself and others that it can be done, because I don't want, I know some young girls that I've worked with before that have celiac and that have Hashimoto's and have all of these autoimmune diseases. And I want them to know like your sports career doesn't have to be over just because you know, you've had your own setbacks. So
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's my long-winded response.
No, no, that's super empowering. That's crazy. So like coming from somebody that might be listening to this podcast that has some of these setbacks, like what's your advice to them? Like what would be your advice?
Well, I mean, I think like understanding that just because you're where you are right now doesn't mean that you're always going to be there.
For
I've
sure.
had people say like, you can do all of this with autoimmune disease. Like, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, well, I couldn't a year ago. I couldn't do any of this stuff a year ago. Like I've
Yeah.
been Nordic skiing and biking and like going shooting for biathlon and doing all these things that like a year ago, if I was like biking a couple times a week, I was like, big win. So it's like understanding that like things can get better. But also for me, really what turned things around was discovering functional medicine, which takes a different approach than, like traditional, not traditional, but like Western medicine. Like when I was just going to like a standard MD, I was not making the same progress that I have now that we've started looking at my system holistically.
Hmm.
And so anyone who really like wants to make a change and hasn't had success or has faced doubts from their doctors, I would highly recommend looking into functional medicine. And I'm always happy to be a resource if people want book recommendations. Like my diet and supplement regimen has like really, really changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's impressive. And so like, spinning off that, you guys, if you want to message anybody, I mean, she was really responsive to me about getting on the podcast. So I'm assuming she would definitely be really responsive to you
Yes,
with
I
issues like
try.
this. She tries. So but yeah, so now you're working with Alan Lim, which
I
is
am.
which is really cool. I didn't even really know he coached. I know he helped Taylor Finney out a bit, but I didn't
Mhm.
know he coached. So what's that transition like? How's that going?
Yeah, it's good. We've been working together for like a year and change. So we started working together at the beginning of like January 1st of last year.
Awesome.
And it's been awesome. Like him, Alan, and Al have so much in common. And so their coaching philosophies have like really come together well. And obviously Al Donahue was the only coach I'd worked with before. So it would have been
Yeah.
a hard transition, I think, if Alan was completely different. And so, yeah, I'm super fortunate to be working with him. And um, he definitely pushes me. He pushes me really hard when he wants me to go hard, and he's like really easy on me during the other times. And he's like, relax. I told you to take the time off, so at least enjoy it. Like, don't just
Yeah,
stress about
yeah,
taking the time off. So he's like really like I can't say hot and cold. That's not what I mean. Like not emotionally, but like in
yeah.
terms of training, it's like when we're on, and when we're off, we're off. And so it's actually kind of nice because I can like I've got my fight back a bit,
Sweet.
just from trying to come back like 100 times over can kind of wear you down. So it's been
Yeah,
nice with Alan has given me a lot of time off, and I'm like, oh my god, I just want to train again. Stop, like
yeah,
I get frustrated. So it's been good. I need
yeah.
that.
Sweet, sweet. No, that's
Yeah.
that's super cool, and like and knowing like because it just hit me really like I'm thinking about it like in 2018 is where we started to see some of this health stuff, right? Like around like
Hmm.
2018, 2019, you missed nationals, and then
Hmm.
2020 it looks like a good year. Boom, you announce your program, and literally like what the next week it's world shutdown, pandemic. You don't
Yes.
stand within 6 feet of someone, so
Yeah, it was like
um,
2 days later that we found out, like, because I announced my program thinking that I was going to go to the mountain bike race that weekend that everyone was at when the race got shut down. It's like that's why I had announced my team.
oh
And then
man.
I was like, oh, I don't have a good feeling about this. It's like,
Yeah, no, yeah, and then hopefully you didn't have any internet trolls being like that was insensitive.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
thankfully not.
good, good. Well, cool. Well, like I said, I don't want to keep you all day, but like I said before, we asked this question to everyone,
Yeah.
and yeah, if you could have coffee with one person, dead or alive, how would you take your coffee? Who would that person be, and why?
Oh,
I
oh my
know it's a
gosh.
heavy one. It's an intense one. If you need a couple seconds,
It's
what I'll do is I'll edit this little piece out so you can go think.
Yeah, because you warned me about it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna think because I don't have an initial answer, and then
Yeah.
I completely forgot.
I always tell people to go with their gut. Like
Who did
Justin
you
Williams
like?
is
Who's your answer? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, tell me, Justin.
Justin was like he did it in like 10 seconds and I don't even think I told him about the question. He was like Kobe, which makes sense. Like if you know Justin, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah, for
sense.
sure. That's a good answer.
Mine changes though, because like I always forget
Yeah.
what I said to the last time. But if I
Hmm.
had to pick, and I just did a podcast with this guy, and it's coming out tomorrow, and his name's Cody Townsend. But I'd like to sit down with him for a coffee again and chat with him just on like life and philosophy. Essentially, this guy, he's a professional skier, and I just got into skiing. So us athletes, like when we get into like one thing, like we feel like we need to become pros at it like immediately. I'm awful,
That's
awful
me
with it.
looking at Jesse Diggins' Instagram page every day because I've been skiing lately.
Yeah, and so Cody Townsend is. I found him through YouTube, and he's trying to ski the 50 best descents of North America, and
Oh,
he bike packed from his home in Lake Tahoe all the way to Mount Hood. So it was a
oh,
thousand miles
cool.
with
Yeah,
skis,
yeah.
mountaineered up to the top, and then
Wow,
skied down Mount Hood. Which
that's
like
so cool.
that to me is super cool. How do you find the
Yeah,
time? How do you get prepared for that mentally? Because like bike packing, as chill as it seems, like in the moment, like there's a
yeah.
lot of planning that goes into that. And so
It's like
I'd
what
love to
my
just sit.
boyfriend does that. It's so crazy.
It's insane.
They did like a bike to ski trip like in the middle of the winter. So they did that exact same, not quite as long. It was like only a couple hundred miles, but they did
But
the same
still a
thing. And
ton.
I know, I'm like
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because now your bike's like 100 pounds. But I would have my coffee.
yeah.
Right now it's cold and I like chocolate when it's cold. I like sweets when it's cold. So
Oh,
like I'd probably do a mocha.
mm-hmm.
I'm usually an espresso guy, but I'd probably do a
Okay.
mocha. Yeah.
I love a good mocha. Oh my God. I have no idea. Okay, honestly, if I had, for some reason, this is so weird. I have absolutely no idea why this was my gut instinct, but this was the first person who came into my head. Freddie Mercury.
Whoa.
I have no
Whoa.
idea why. Like, I haven't, or maybe, I don't know, like,
Why
kind
would
of
why would
you.
you why would you think Freddie Mercury? I mean, he's a character, so that's good.
I honestly, I really, really love Queen.
Yeah.
Like I love Queen, but I'm not like one of those die-hard people. Like I don't know a ton about the band. Like I do. but I'm not like, I don't know his birthday, like,
Yeah, yeah. You're not like a complete fangirl, but like,
yeah, I'm not like
yeah,
a Queen cult member. I'm just like,
yeah.
I just really love the music and I
Uh
find it
huh.
very impactful. So I feel like he would be really cool because he was like eclectic and all of
Yeah.
that. Um, I would also consider like Stephen King
Oh, okay.
and like Adam Rippon because I feel like we're already friends, but we're not. He's a
But we're
figure
not.
skater. So,
Right
but like
on.
he doesn't know I exist, but I feel like we're friends. So those, I don't know, I can't choose.
I'm
Those are my three.
I'm gonna cut this piece out. I'm gonna tag him and see if he sees it. So how would you have your coffee?
Honestly, I would have it just how I normally have it, like an Americano with maple
Yeah.
syrup.
With maple syrup. That's like
Yeah,
so north of I've ever heard
I
it.
know. But if you haven't done it, it's really good.
And it has to be real maple syrup, right? Like it
Yes,
can't.
I'm not talking about syrup. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like maple syrup.
I get you. All right. So
So,
I'm gonna do that this weekend. I'm gonna try it
yes,
and I'm gonna see how it goes. And does
it's
it
worth
matter
it.
how much or is it like to taste? Is it kind of like,
It's to taste,
yeah,
but I mean, I like sweet black coffee.
yeah.
So I put in like, you know, a good bit.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna try
Yeah.
it this weekend and I'm gonna try it twice. I'm gonna try it like a little bit and then I'm gonna try
Yeah.
like a decent amount where I can really
Hmm.
taste it.
Yeah,
All
like a
right.
nice sweet cup.
Well, Ellen, like I said before, thank you so much for your time. And guys,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much for listening. And you guys can check out her social media down in the description below. Thank you for being vulnerable with us, like about
Yeah,
that
thank you.
and opening up your book and letting people message you if they want to about these
Yeah,
kinds of
of
things.
course.
Because I know a lot of people have these questions and it's not just us that have these issues. And so it's super cool. Other than that, guys, we'll see you next time. Thanks.